Oh, aloha. I had my microphone off. Today is March 19th. It is Wednesday, March 19th, 2025, and this is my live coaching. My name is Kim Ann Curtin, the Wall Street Coach. I do these almost every Wednesday to be a contribution to the trading community and to just help encourage all of you traders who are working so hard out there. Uh, if you guys don't know who I am, let me introduce myself to you. I've been known as the Wall Street Coach since 2008 and have trademarked it since. I got that moniker thanks to a reporter who interviewed me outside of the New York Stock Exchange when I was doing free coaching there in the middle of the banking crisis. I help traders and investors and executives, anyone who needs to end self-sabotage. That's my specialty. Why? Because I had to learn how to end self-sabotage for myself. So what I teach isn't good ideas. I teach tools that work because I am living proof that those tools work. So what and where do I come from? Well, I've worked in finance now for almost 30 years. I started in finance and spent almost a decade in the C-suite of the finance world. The last position I had was at one of the largest hedge funds in the world. And I hired a coach when I was there because I was looking for the bliss, which is something I learned from Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, that was possible for us to find our bliss. And so I hired a coach to help me find my bliss. And that experience was absolutely transformative. So much so that I felt called to become a coach. So that was 18 years ago. And I've been coaching executives, traders, uh, institutional traders, day traders, individuals, entrepreneurs, everybody since for 18 years because this is what I'm born to do. This is my bliss. Because I've worked with hedge funds and sovereign wealth funds and prop firms, 7 and 8 figure traders, mid and large cap executives, and even fintech CEOs, it's safe to say I know what I'm doing. So I come into this room almost every Wednesday to try to be a contribution back to the community. My hope at the start of these is to always get a volunteer or two for a hot seat. And of course, I come in with a topic or two as well in case get any volunteers. So hopefully, if there's anybody watching now who says, yes, I would like to have some coaching, Kim, then please come in. I'm going to put the post right now that you would be clicking. That'll bring you into sort of a green room. And then I would approve you to come into the room. I'm going to go on to X now and just put this link right underneath this live so that hopefully this anybody watching on X can come on in. I just want to double check here that Instagram is working too. Some folks said it wasn't working the last time I did this, so hopefully this does work. Okay, good. Awesome. So I just put that there too. So, I always come to these conversations with a couple of topics that I feel are struggles that I'm seeing in traders. And one of the common, I put out a couple of short tweets every day. And one that I put out today that has gotten quite a bit of attention, I want to speak to because I feel this topic is really important. And especially because I was very fortunate. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I was very fortunate to have Dr. Michael Platts come on an X Space the other day when I had him on my podcast. In fact, I want to grab his book off my shelf so you can just take note of it. This is a book I would really strongly recommend. Even though it's titled The Leader's Brain, it might as well be titled The Trader's Brain. So look, guys, look at that. This is a 106-page book. You're going to read it in a half a day. You're going to read it on a Saturday or Sunday this weekend. It is a quick read, but it's going to give you very clear understanding about how your mind works. If you also, I would say, get that book and then listen to the X Space he and I just did on Monday. It is a 40-minute listen that is going to open your eyes. He talked about so many of the struggles that traders go through, so many of the issues I see in my coaching. And part of what I think is my biggest advocacy is that traders need to really commit to becoming more self-aware. What I see often is that traders have not really spent a lot of time looking under the hood of how they operate. They think that how they operate in their day-to-day life has nothing to do with how they're going to operate in their trading life, but they are always going to be in the same kind of style, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And the key here, all that I'm ultimately advocating, is practice self-awareness, practice self-observation, start to see the habits you have, the triggers you have, the frustrations you have, the impatience you have, the lack of self-control. Not from the standpoint to make yourself feel bad, not from the standpoint to make yourself feel like, you're wrong or you're doing something bad. This is part of why I see traders not reflect on this self-awareness, because what it goes usually hand in hand with is their inner critic getting really kind of nasty to them. So I want to encourage you, please see if you can start to practice self-awareness without the judgment. If you guys can get better at observing yourself neutrally, like a scientist, not with judgment, not like a jury that's ready to put the noose around your neck, but neutrally, that gives you the ability to see the patterns, to see, gosh, whenever this happens in a trade, I react this way. That is the beginning of you being able to change the behavior. But if your inner critic is beating you up, guess what's going to happen? You're going to go into a contraction. You're going to start to stop breathing properly. Your whole body's going to tense up. Your stomach is going to tense up. Your everything, all of your physiology is going to be kind of tightened up. That is not a place you want to be trading from. You want to be in a flow state, ideally, but you're going to have to find out these places that you do get stopped. And if you make yourself wrong for that or beat yourself up for that, you are moving yourself further away from changing it or transforming it. And so I encourage you to become a person who is more aware of themselves. But the path to that starts with neutrality, not judgment. Judgment doesn't work. I'm not telling you to not tell yourself hard truths. A lot of people know that I'm always advocating people learn how to be kinder to themselves. But that doesn't imply that I'm telling you to deny or to ignore the costly behavior. You're going to have to learn how to be with hard truths. Yes, you're going to have to face some shadows within yourself. You're going to have to face some things that are not fun for your ego to face. But if you do that with, a stick, beating yourself up, it's not going to really get you to the place you want to get. You have to learn how to approach those challenges with empathy, with understanding, with realizing that there is a bunch of reasons you are reacting that way. And if you can begin to observe that with as much neutrality as you can muster up, I promise you, then you are going to be much more in a position to rewire this machine. But it's got to start without you being like incredibly hard on yourself. Because look, this is one of my favorite pictures. I know there's going to be people who are listening who can't see it, but I'll describe it. Let's see here. Here's the picture. This is a picture of North Korean dictator watching a man at his desk. Can you guys see that picture? How well do you think that man is going to work right now? How much pressure do you think that guy's feeling? Okay. That is not a fun picture. That is not a fun situation to be in. That is a man now who is completely going to be going, most likely into a contraction. This is how almost all the traders I have ever spoken to, not all of them, but a lot of them, they have an internal critic who's as intimidating as this guy, maybe more so. That's how hard a lot of you guys are on yourself. You have your own version of North Korea's dictator in your psyche, in your head, in your listening to that voice instead of a neutral observable voice that says, wow, that was really costly behavior. I wonder what and where that comes from. That is the beginning of being able to rewire it. But if you are having an experience that puts you into fear or shame or, complete terror, like this poor guy, it isn't going to go well, guys. It isn't going to go well. Nobody looks at that picture and says, oh, yeah, that guy's fine. No, everybody sees that picture and they can imagine how hard that would be to work or do well under that kind of pressure. And yet, how many of you are putting that kind of pressure on yourself? I am all about pushing ourselves beyond our comfort level, but we need to do it in a certain kind of methodical way. If we overload our system with the shoulds, with the musts, with the have-tos, you are going to shut your system down. I liken it, and I didn't ask Micah Platt about this, but I will the next time if I get lucky enough to have him back on the podcast. I liken a lot of how we're built to a pinball machine. If I don't know, some of you kids are so young, you probably never played with a true pinball machine in an arcade. But I remember, you could jack that machine around a little bit to try to get the ball not to go through the two, flippers. But if you jack that machine up too much, what happens? It goes on tilt. You, I think, are similar. If you want to push yourself and you want to challenge yourself, I'm all for it. But you got to stop at that line in the sand where you go over into tilt. Because what happens with a pinball machine, for you youngins who don't know, when it goes on tilt, the whole system shuts down for like 2 or 3 minutes and you can't play. The lights go off, the whole machine just stops working. And it forces you to calm the hell down. If only we, like pinball machines, actually did shut down for 2 minutes, get ourselves rebooted, so to speak, and come back again, we would be in much better shape. All right, did a little rant there. We got about 70 people in the room. Tell me if anybody is wanting to come in for some live coaching. I would love to see some volunteers come in. Don't be shy. Sometimes people are shy. I encourage you. This is an incredible short burst of coaching that you should take advantage of. That's all I can say. I would take advantage of it if I were you. All right. what were the other topics I wanted to bring up today? Oh, just this so the tweet. Oh, let me get back to the tweet. So the tweet that I put out there that seemingly, got a lot of traction, or at least so far has gotten a lot of traction, was I said that most traders don't have a trading problem. They have a self-control problem. What do I mean by that? I think it's pretty obvious. But the heart of that is that if you aren't seeing how you operate in your trading with self control, then again, I want you to bring an incredible amount of curiosity to what is happening for you. What is being triggered? If you begin to operate like a scientist, operate like a private investigator, you will begin to notice the triggers that set you off. You will begin to notice that it doesn't happen with all of your trades. It only happens with certain trades, or it only happens when you are feeling the pinch. Maybe the pinch is financial. Maybe the pinch is you just had a bad conversation with your boyfriend and you're mad at him. Maybe it's the day you just found out you have to pay for your parents' elder care. Maybe it's the day somebody cut you off on the highway. I want you guys to track what is happening when you lose self control, because over time, I suspect you will be able to see the events, the needs that you are not getting met that drive that. Even if you are sitting at your trading desk and you're conscious, yeah, I just got in a fight before. I'm about to trade today with somebody that I care about and I'm mad at them and I feel disrespected. Even if there is nothing you can do, you will be conscious of that. That is part of why I constantly recommend you keep that needs list handy. Let me post out right now as I talk about this. This is the universal needs list that was created by Marshall Rosenberg. When I discovered this list, it was a life changer. To this day, as you guys know, I have 5 practices, those I talk about in my book, Transforming Wall Street. And this is one of them. So that's the sign up for the Universal Needs List. I'm going to actually put this up right now, also up on X for you to go sign up for it. Here's what this Universal Needs List is all about. It is going to give you two things. First, it's going to help you understand what the basic human needs are. We all have these needs, guys. None of us don't have these basic needs. The difference is there are going to be people who look at that list and think, oh, yeah, I'm getting a lot of these met. And then there are going to be people, usually not that many, who can say that. Most will say, wow, I'm not getting any of these needs met. And what I want you to see is that when you don't get your basic needs met, and if you're curious what needs are, I'll just say a few out loud: respect, to be seen and heard, community, freedom, security. What else is on there? It's a huge list. Creativity, efficacy, discovery, challenge, adventure. Okay. If you aren't getting these met on a day to day basis in your life, you inevitably, consciously or unconsciously, will seek those needs in everything you do, including your trading. And that is why I am coming from this place of suggesting you strongly get to understand what needs you don't have met every day, because you are going to be looking for them possibly in the trades you take. And that is going to be costly, because the only thing that should be informing the trades you take is your strategy. But we both know that often a trader will leave that strategy behind and go chase something And I'm telling you right now, often that is because those needs are not getting met. And that is this, it's like a drowning man needs oxygen. If you don't have your basic needs met, guys, you are like a drowning man who doesn't have oxygen. If you get your oxygen tank filled, you're just like a guy who's drowning, right? I tell the story all the time. Why would two lifeguards are encouraged in twos to approach somebody who's drowning? Why? Because one of them is going to get pulled down. But none of us judges that person who does that because we're like, the guy needed oxygen. But this is why it's so important for all of us to understand our needs are like oxygen. We are going to do things that are costly if we are not getting our oxygen met. This is, they even tell us on the plane, right? What do they even say to parents? They say, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you even attempt to help even your child with their oxygen mask. The same is true with needs, guys. You have to get your basic needs met first so that you can operate the heavy machinery called trading properly. But if you are deprived of oxygen, if you don't have oxygen, your ability to stay true to your strategy is compromised. Your ability to stay with self control is going to drop precipitously if you are unable to have your basic needs met. So, on the days when you are coming into your trading with a collection of needs that are not met, at least be conscious of it. At least notice, wow, I didn't maybe get my need for rest met last night. I certainly didn't get my need for communication met if you had that disagreement. And in fact, I'm hungry and haven't even eaten breakfast yet. You've got to realize that as you step into the arena that day, you're already compromised by 3 areas, and that doesn't set you up for success. That is when you are more likely to lose self-control because you're already depleted in so many ways. So I'm going to pause there, check in. I'm going to hop around to the platforms to see if we got any questions inside of X, because sometimes people send some little messages to me. All right. Also, if you don't want to volunteer for Hot Seat and you have a question, please just put it in the comments. I can read that question out loud there and address it. All right, I'm going to take a sip of my iced tea. You guys know, those who are regulars know, I always try to get a Diet Coke on Wednesdays. That's like my once a week Diet Coke. And I didn't have time today, but Brian Johnson put up a hilarious tweet on X. He had a picture of him, like old world Catholic church, where he's the priest behind the screen in a confessional, and he's basically saying, what are your confessions? Because he's always giving us a hard time about, if we don't sleep well, if we don't eat properly, don't have booze. Sometimes people put up like, Brian, I'm tempted to go get, a Diet Coke, and then he'll scold us and tell us all the technical reasons why we shouldn't have a Diet Coke. But this was something Dr. Platt said, and I really hope you guys, the podcast will drop next week at some point. Please watch it. It's an incredible conversation. And of course, up on X is the pod. We did an X space, he and I. It's 30, 40 minutes, guys, but it's so good. So good. He answers such great questions. But I asked him about that. Was one of my questions to him. We're getting it all over the place. You gotta sleep. You gotta meditate. You gotta do the cold plunge. We gotta meditate. What else did I say? We can't drink Diet Coke. Right? We shouldn't have any booze. We're supposed to eat protein and healthy food all the time. And there's just the data is so robust. All of us every day are like constantly being inundated with what we should do. And I said to him, it's like this constant quest uh, for perfection. It feels like, oh my God, no matter, like maybe I do 7 of those 10 things, but then, you feel guilty. Like I feel guilty. Oh, Dell, you're so nice. Dell, the day trader said you are the best. You're so sweet. Thank you, Dell. But like I feel guilty, guys, every time I get that Diet Coke, especially because I'm drinking it here with all of you guys. I'm a bad influence. Diet Coke is a bad influence. Oh my God, it's so funny. The other thing I have to tell you about the Diet Coke, Dan, I don't know if you guys follow Dan Crosby. Dan Crosby is an amazing guy. He's got a bunch of great books too. Check him out. He's on LinkedIn. He's certainly on X. So Dan Crosby had put out a tweet. This is years back. I don't know, 5, 10 years ago, but it's so freaking hilarious. And he said something like, he was on his way, being really good with his food and his health and everything. And he said something like, I've given up my Diet Coke and now I just am miserable or something adorable. And his tweet went viral. This is way before Brian Johnson was on the scene. Anyway, everybody weighed in. I was like, me too, Dan. I miss my Diet Coke. So I'm glad, Del. I'm glad to know that I'm not alone with my guilty pleasure. I mean, how crazy, guys! Like my guilty pleasure is Diet Coke. I'm not saying I don't have any other, compromising behavior, but it's the Diet Coke. I know it's not good for us, right? But it gives me that little bit of caffeine, a little sweet treat. I mean, it's probably better to drink the regular Coke, but I just can't. It's too sweet for me now. All right. So Adi says, hello, I'd like to know, please, what is your advice for someone who feels frustrated? That's a great question, Adi. So here is what I'm going to recommend for anybody who feels frustrated, but especially you. I believe you're a trader, Adi. I'm sure we connected up before. So here's what I want to say about frustration. It's a indicator on the dashboard of you that needs aren't being met. So if you go sign up for that universal needs list. Great question, Dell. Great question. I think that's an awesome follow-up, Dell. Dell is asking you, what are you frustrated with? And Adi, I think that's important to answer. And I would recommend you print up that universal needs list. And this is what I would suggest. On page 2 of that needs list, what you're going to discover is that there's a whole bunch of unpleasant feelings, right? Frustration is one of them. All of them. Great. Anger. Okay, you're saying all of them based on Dell. So on Dell's question was, are you frustrated by results? Process, what are you specific? And Dell and Adi is saying all of them. But here's the thing, okay, Adi, anytime we're feeling frustration, what I want everybody to always do is track back that frustration, stop loss, track the frustration and or anger and or sadness and or disappointment back to the need not met. So Adi, I'm just going to ask you now, just off the top of my head, I'm going to presume, is it possible that you are not getting your need met for security, right? Now, security is measured in a lot of ways, but we're just doing high level for this moment because you're not on camera. So is it possible security is not being met? Is it possible freedom is not being met? Is it possible efficacy or effectiveness isn't being met? Let's just start there and let me know. Do any of those feel like you're not getting those met or getting met enough, right? So not getting met or not getting met enough. Is that something that you could be having? And until you answer, I'm going to respond to what Dell is saying here. So Dell is saying, Kim, isn't frustration rooted in control and lack of mechanical look at the market, too much reliance on a sense of security and comfort? It's a great question, Del, and I hear what you're saying. So this it's not I'm not going to say no to you, but I think there's part of the reason that isn't the place I feel it's best to address with somebody is because each of us have basic needs. And if we aren't getting those needs met, it is inevitable that these feelings will surface. And so I come from this perspective, even for my own journey, that if I can begin to understand what needs I have in the moment that aren't getting met, it does something really quite magical. It facilitates my ability to extend some empathy to myself for not having those needs met. Does that make sense? When you make yourself, let's say, well, the reason I'm frustrated is because I'm trying to control the market. It kind of is like a scolding, a self scolding, like I shouldn't be this way. But you are in that moment feeling that way. So I sort of believe it is better for us to just identify, yeah, I wish I had right now, instead of control, right? I'm going to the needs, right? Control is not a need. Under control, though, is possibly security, is possibly freedom. This is why the needs are so important. And the other thing I want to say too, I just want to get my little handy needs list because I want to speak to a few more words that aren't coming to me right now. So this is a little list that I carry around with me. The list I've given you guys is a little bigger, but this is just a complete list of all the needs, not all, but a lot of them. And what I want to say is that when needs aren't met, even in the moment, the first thing we want to do is we want to empathize with ourselves because we are not having it satisfied. And that is the piece that, like, I may, let's say I talk to a friend who's too busy to really listen to me, right? She's busy. She has something going on. But I will, let's say, walk away from that call like, wow, she really couldn't listen to me. If I can extend empathy that I didn't get my need met for just being heard or being, having her just like hold space for me, now I'm in a position to just give myself a little bit of acknowledgement that that need is still sitting here unmet. And maybe because I practice this long enough, if I feel like, wow, that is a really, really important need for me right now because I'm stressed or I have some pressure or I feel upset about something, I have to become a really good steward, as all of you do, of what the non-negotiable needs are for you. Now, let's just say if Adi is really struggling right now with not feeling like his need for security is met, his level of frustration is going to be much louder than a standard day-to-day frustration. And so that becomes then, if I have this really, really dire need for security, I might have to try to get that secured in other areas of my life so that when I show up at my trading desk, I'm not trying to extract it from the market. And that's not what the market is there to do. You will try to seek those needs out, especially if you are really starved and malnourished for them, from every place you step, because your whole system is like, we need this oxygen. But that is when the costs compound for traders. There are traders who are bored There are traders who have been at this a long time that sometimes overtrade because their strategy works so well that they will sit there after it's done its job and they're bored and they will overtrade because they're not getting their need for challenge met. They are not getting their need for creative stimulation met. There are so many ways that I see traders try to get their needs met from the market, and that is not the place to secure them. So good, Adi, I'm so glad. So sign up for the needs list, print it up, and I would ask yourself, find out what the non-negotiable needs are. Look, there's a lot of needs on that list. You might circle all of them. Do that initially. That's the first exercise for anybody who prints this up. Circle, circle, circle all the needs you don't have met or you don't have met enough. But then I want you to narrow it down, Adi. I want you to narrow it down to like the top 3 you cannot live without. And if security is one of them, then you are going to have to become a very good steward of getting security met. Not in your trading, but every place else. Maybe there's a side hustle you can take. Maybe there's other opportunity for you to find, let's say security, maybe you find a less expensive place to live. Like, find ways to get security met outside of your trading, because that will give you the ability to have less likelihood of being frustrated with the ins and outs of what a trader has to go through. But if you're coming in already frustrated, because you're rarely just frustrated by what the trading, what you're doing in your trading. Whatever the market is doing there, it's rarely just there. It's usually showing up in other places in your life as well. Dell says trader needs are coffee, lots of trades, and lots of profits. I'm going to say, Dell, even though I know you're kidding around, but lots of trades sometimes tell, right? But we both know there's times traders take too many trades and that costs them. But I get the gist. What you're advocating, I presume, is the Mike Bellafiore's one good trade, right? One good trade, one good trade, one good trade. You got to do that over time for you to be able to. But for you to do that, you're going to have to be neutral. You're going to have to find a way to get your needs met outside of your trading. All right, I'm thirsty today. It's because I don't have my Diet Coke. No, I'm just kidding. All right. What was the other? There was something else with the needs I wanted to speak to. So anyway, that is part of why I feel traders potentially lose control. Because if you don't have that concept of hangry, right? When you're so hungry, you start to get angry. It's the same thing, guys, right? You're like, oh, I'm hangry. I got to get food because my mood is, I'm less patient. I'm frustrated, right? That concept, everybody understands that. Oh, he's hangry. Like, we all get that. But that, you got to ask yourself, we can be hangry, not just for food, but for needs. If we don't feel seen, if we don't feel heard. Another thing Dr. Platt talked at length about, and this is a topic I hope we can dive into more in the future, is we are social creatures. He talks about how our brain has evolved over 30,000 years. Like, we are built for social engagement. Ask yourselves, guys, when was the last time you had social engagement? We both know traders have a tendency to be very isolated. And I hate to break it to you, a friend in a Discord room is not the same as a person eye to eye with you. So that is also costing you in your trading, because your whole physiology is in need of human connection. He talks about this in the podcast, which will drop in a week. Please look for it. It's going to be on my podcast, The Wall Street Coach, which is on YouTube, Spotify, whatever the other ones are, iTunes. But think about that, guys. That, if for those of you who go to Trades for a Cause, for those who come to Trades for a Cause events or any events where you guys meet traders, think about it. Think about the high That's spoken about for weeks afterwards. Oh my God, that was amazing. Oh my God, my trading is so much better. Oh my God, I made so many friends. Oh my God, I felt so understood, seen, connected. And guess what's available to those traders? Discipline, more self control. You think that's a coincidence? It isn't. It's because they have met and spent time with like minded people. They have been social. They're coming from a place of feeling seen and understood and having human social interaction. If that's why those events that happen, there's a bunch happening now. I think Traders for a Cause is doing them like in Miami and Boston. Like there's a whole bunch of little ones that have been popping up, whether it's them or it's Bear Bull Traders, whether it's Jay Trader, he just has a big event in Italy, like if True Traders had events. Like there's so many, and I'm probably not even speaking to a bunch of others. Go to them, people. Go to them. Miss that and Jack Kellogg. Watch Kellogg on YouTube, though. It was great. I'm so glad, Tina, that you listened to that. We just dropped. So Jack Kellogg was on my podcast quite a while ago, and he went over to do an X Space with me. So what we just did, just so everybody knows, is because I've done a lot of X Spaces, I've done probably 2 to 3 years worth of X Spaces. My amazing editor has repurposed just the X spaces that have been up on, X for the past 2 years. They're so far back, it would be hard for you to find them on my X account. So we repurposed them, and now we're dropping the audio only. Of course, X, we do only audio. All of those X spaces are starting to now, populate my podcast. So if you haven't heard Jack Kellogg's X Space, which is, again, it's a year or two old. I don't remember the date, Tina. I don't know if you remember, but Tina just listened to it. She commented on my podcast page, YouTube. Tina is like a rock star on my YouTube channel. She has watched almost all of my videos, and she has commented on more than 100 of, I have like, what was the count, Tina? We last said it was like 500. I have 542 pieces of content, guys, on my podcast channel, on the YouTube channel. So, look, there's a lot of stuff there. And some of these traders are dropping gem after gem after gem. You want to listen to these people because everything they're sharing, they have lived through, they have gone through. And that, I think, makes a huge difference. Also, their level of empathy is robust, so they can appreciate the pain and suffering that you guys are going through. And I think that makes a big difference, right? We all need to feel like we're not the only ones. But just keep this in mind, guys. You are social creatures. And if you're not getting any kind of social needs met regularly, it is cognitively compromising you. Tina, did you say over 900 pieces of content? Oh my God, I can't believe that's true. Oh my God, Tina, you're so awesome how you know this. We're gonna have to put you on the payroll, Tina. You got some data I don't even have. You keep a track. You're like my bookkeeper there, keeping the bookie, keep a track of all the bets and all the content. I love it. Thank you so much, Tina. Mm. That's that's amazing. I thought I had like 500 podcasts. Probably have 500 podcasts, but there's probably other content like the shorts, I bet. Okay, so thanks, Tina. Oh my God, you're amazing. I can't believe you had that like instant recall. You crack me up. All right, who is coming in for coaching? What do I got left here? I got like 15 minutes. Nobody's coming in for some live coaching. What the heck, guys? It's been a while since we had a volunteer. I'm so sad when nobody comes in to do some coaching. It's so fun to coach you guys. So, Adi, thank you for your question. Del, I'm glad you were here asking good questions of him. Uh, Del, do you want to come in? Do you want to do some coaching? It's up to you. But any questions you guys want to ask, feel free to put them in the comments. I'm going to hop over to X quick to see if there's any questions there that maybe I missed while I was waxing on. Yeah, Del, come on in. Here, Del, I'm going to give you this link and then we can hear how you're doing. Fabulous. Love it. So just click that link and then you'll come into the studio and then I will bring you into the conversation. I'm so excited to have you come in. It's great news. All right, once you click on that, and then I have to see you inside this little space, and then I click button and you'll be on camera. So it'll be great to see you, Del. It's been a while. So what else? So if you haven't signed up for that Needs List, guys, do. And also, if you're kind of curious or thinking about coaching, let's see here. I have followed you since you first appeared on Steady Trade with Stephen and Tim. Del, that's a long time. That is a long time. Thank you so much for watching me all these years. God, what is that? 5, 6 years ago? That was a year or two before the pandemic, right? I think it was like maybe a year before the pandemic. It is like 5, 6 years ago. It's crazy. Oh my God, time goes so fast, doesn't it? That is amazing. Oh, that goes way back. And that, guys, that's so nice. Thanks, Del. I'm your number one coach. That makes me feel good. Thank you. Make my heart. Make 2019. Wow, that goes so fast. 21 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, 6 years. Wow, 6 years. Crazy. Crazy, 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 crazy how time flies. But and this too, guys, the focus on day traders really kind of started. I've always had day traders over the years, a lot more institutional traders, just because that was I was in New York City going to hedge fund events and stuff. Let's DM on about the next session thing, and I'd love to feature here for sure, Del, for sure. But are you going to come in now? I put the link right before your comment about Tim and Stephen. If you're going to come in now, just tell me when you are there. Are you already there? No, I don't see you. Okay. So are you going to come in now? And then, if you want to do it next time, that's fine too. But I just wanted to say that my focus though with the day trading community, that's okay, no problem, Del. Next time. I do these almost every Wednesday and I usually do them around this time, so I would say just come on in the next time. That's totally cool. I'm glad you're here and it's fine. But the focus with the day trading community really started thanks to the Steady Trade podcast. They had me on, a colleague of theirs, somebody had seen me here in Hawaii at Alan Cohen. Alan Cohen is a special a man. He is a kind of, just an incredible author around personal development. And he used to have a retreat here every year. And I was a speaker at that retreat that he had for, other coaches and whatnot. And I was at the event, which, if you guys saw it, it was in Kapa'au, which is a small little town here on the Big Island, in the middle of really nowhere. There's it's not a big town. And of all places, this wonderful guy was there with his girlfriend. His girlfriend was on the retreat and, he was joining her. And he saw me speak and introduced me to the Steady Trade podcast. And so the Steady Trade podcast, Del, had me on, and then they had me on again, and then they had me on again. They had me on as a guest like 10 times. And then at some point they're like, we want you to be part of our podcast. Would you come on, Kim? And I said, of course. So it was a wonderful experience. And it really began to put myself in front of way more day traders. And of course, I'm sure you remember this, Del, I was able to coach Steve, and I did a lot of live coaching with Steve. And I think Stephen did 2 or 3 coaching sessions with me on the Steady Trade podcast that went pretty deep. They went pretty deep. I kudos to Steven Johnson because he was very vulnerable in those coaching sessions online, like live YouTube. Like that takes a lot of guts. And we went really deep. And I do deep stuff here. I haven't heard from Steven in a long time. We did connect maybe a year ago briefly, and it sounded like he was doing good. I think he's has a great girlfriend, as I recall, and I think he's in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. So he sounds like he was in a good space, which makes me happy. So yeah, he's a special guy, and certainly comfortable with being vulnerable, which and I just want to talk about that a little bit. Like I feel sometimes frustrated, especially for the guys, men in general, because there's sort of this whole big kind of the manosphere advocacy of you guys having to just do it and grind it out and Navy SEAL your way through and all of this. And look, I'm not telling you there aren't times where you're going to have to gird your loins and take on some hard tasks. But I want to just say that I think the most incredible strength any man can show these days is vulnerability. Not willy-nilly, not with somebody who's not trustworthy, but that took courage for Steven Johnson to speak to the challenges he faced in his own trading, in his own life. And that encourages other people to not feel so alone. There was it takes a lot to share openly like he did. No shadows, just transparency. 100% tell. I think that is something we don't see enough of. And I think for men especially, you guys are kind of constantly being inundated with the cultural, manosphere with this, be a man. Like that whole phrase is just so damaging because it implies that you can't be a wuss or can't have feelings that are hard to be with, or you're somehow not a man. Like that is just a bunch of misinformation just to try to make you feel lousy about yourself. And this is, I think, the most important thing that male traders need to realize, that because you guys sometimes have cut yourself off from those hard to be with emotions, you somehow will find inevitably that they will be where the market comes in and finds that hidden button and pushes you because it is trying to heal it for you. But if you don't want to be with that and ignore it, which is what a lot of men have been taught to do, often in their families of origin, often by their own, male role models, that just keeps everything bottled up inside. And unless it gets out into the light, you can't heal it. You can't heal it, guys. And I can promise you the cost of holding in all those emotions is health issues, broken relationships, and you not securing what you want to secure with your trading. Those invisible holdbacks, which is the ego. The ego likes to be right. The ego doesn't like to be vulnerable. The ego wants to have this facade for the world, even for ourselves, to feel better about ourselves. But the only time we need to have that facade is if we haven't learned how to actually like ourselves just the way we are. We're all imperfect. We all have issues. We all have things that are holding us back. But can you meet that with a sense of understanding? Nobody, anything you're doing, guys, that's costly, anything you're doing that you're like, oh God, why do I keep doing this? Like, it's human. So notice it. Oh, yeah, that one. I keep repeating that, and it seems to really cost me. What if I get to what that is caused by? This was another tweet that I put out. Actually, I didn't put this out. Somebody put it out instead, but I loved it. It was a quote from a movie with Timothy Chalamet. And this is what it says. I'm just going to read it to you because it's so small. This is his character in this scene of the movie. He says, I woke up in a hospital and someone asked me, what's your problem? And the character says, I said, I'm an alcoholic and an addict. Listen to this answer. And he said, no, that's how you've been treating your problem. Okay. Do you hear that, guys? So the behavior, the alcoholic, the addiction, the things you do to numb, that is not your problem. That is how you're coping with your problem. Whatever you're doing in your trading that is compromising you isn't the problem. And this goes back to Del when I, was pushing back over like what some of you were saying with Chad's question, right? Most traders are looking at the dandelions on their little lawn and they keep pulling the dandelions up. Kim, this is the problem. The problem is the dandelion. I just got to pull it up, pull it up, pull it up. And I'm like, no, it's not the dandelion. It's the soil. What is happening in the soil that keeps making the dandelions pop up? That is where you guys have to address. So you have FOMO, you break your rules, you get tempted by a shiny object, you get bored, you chase, you are threatened because so-and-so trader did better than you that day. If those things are happening to you guys, you just looking at those things is where you put your focus, but it doesn't get you anywhere, does it? I mean, you tell me. You guys tell me. Does being able to come into this room and talk about it or put it in the questions, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, does that make it go away? I don't think so. I don't think so. So you got to realize that is a symptom. It's a symptom of the problem. And the problem is often invisible to us. Why? Because we have so busy pushed it down for so long that what's really underneath this costly behavior has become so far from our consciousness because we had likely experienced shame. Exactly. Pointing to the fire doesn't put it out. Well said, Del. Well said. But the key here is, guys, the judgment that you have for yourself, because that, and can you see how that's a vicious cycle? You look at the dandelion, you look at that fire, like, can you believe the fire? Can I have the fire again? I can't believe I had fire. And then you start to have this toxic self-talk. I should, I could. What's wrong with me? Why do I always do this? Why do I keep repeating the same mistakes? But it's a circle. It's a circle, a cycle. It just goes around and around and around. That's why you have to stop this negative self-talk, because that will keep you in the cycle of shame when likely whatever the problem is to begin with is rooted in shame. Because if it wasn't, you would have likely been able to look in the eye and take it on. But it's hard to take on the experience of whatever problem it is if what comes with it is this tremendous sense of shame. If you look at the experience of the emotions, this was something Dr. David Hawkins did. His book is called Power versus Force, right? Power versus Force. The energy, the darkest, the most draining, costly feeling emotions we have are shame. That is the bottom of those feelings and emotions. It is incredibly costly to all of us. And if you think about it, that if there's one thing everybody's inner critic or inner gremlin does, it's to make us feel ashamed. And when we feel ashamed, there is no chance we're going to be able to move ourselves in the direction of change. Because what happens when you feel ashamed? What happens when you feel like, completely awful about yourself. You want to hide. You want to isolate. You want to get as buried under your blankies as possible because that feeling of shame is not even just with others, but with even being with ourselves. And that's why it is so toxic. And that's why it's so important for, in general, everyone to start to notice that when shame gets triggered, you are now listening and been hijacked by an inner saboteur, an inner critic. And it is costly, costly, costly. And that if I don't do anything else with the work I do, my hope is to at least communicate that to every trader. Find a way to notice how often you're putting yourself into the shame machine because it is not helping you. It is only costing you. And if you can stop get into that loop, you actually then move yourself into solving what is the heart of the problem. But it's really hard to do if you're in a place of shame. And that is a really good book. It's a spiritual book. It's a deep book. It's probably going to be considered by some woo-woo book, but I read a lot of woo-woo books. I go after a lot of things, but you have to ask yourself, the title says it all. Power versus force. How many days, guys, are you trading from the force instead of from the energy of power? If you are coming from force, not going to work long term. Maybe you get away with it a couple of times because you're lucky, but you've got to come from a place of power, not from force. In life, what works better, right? What would you rather have? There's plenty of bullies out there. We're seeing them on a daily basis right now. They come from force, force, force. It never works long term, guys. Short term, hell yeah. But long term, no, it's going to be costly. That force is going to choke the very people who use that force in the end. But power, true power, is something that is an inside job. Inside job. And if you are not coming from power, because often we aren't, we will get triggered. We will not have our needs met. We will find ourselves trying to force something. It's human. I'm not making it wrong, but I just want you to notice that if you are coming from force, especially in your trading with the market, that market is going to be like, I'm sorry, who do you think you are? All right. Dell says, for most traders, it's after each losing trade. Yeah, that's when the shame kicks up because your inner critic gets triggered. Your inner critic gets completely on your back because you made a mistake. And God forbid you, human being, make mistakes. Like, what are you guys thinking? You're robots? You read Mike Platt's book? You're going to find out you're more like a chimpanzee than you realize. So you're going to make mistakes. Get over it. Notice how your inner critic makes you feel guilty for being what you're always going to be: human, fallible, imperfect, a fuck up. Like, welcome to being human, folks. Stop trying to be perfect and start to find ways to leash those parts of yourself that are imperfect. Don't shame it. Start to learn how to embrace it. Learn how to love the parts of yourself that aren't perfect. That is going to give you true power. That is going to give you momentum. But it's sort of like having the foot on the gas pedal and the foot on the brake. How far can you go? Not that far. Not that far. And all I'm saying is, if you begin to notice, oh, I have some limiting behaviors. Oh, I have some old habits that really served me in that environment years back, but now it seems to cost me. Okay. Let's do something about it. Let's investigate. Let's pull that apart. But with a sense of curiosity, not with judgment, because the judgment is going to cost you. And, I'm thinking you guys have already probably paid a high price already. If you've gotten this far in your trading, you've already paid a lot of not only money, but time, energy, effort. Why would you want to pay more? Right? So find a way to stop just pouring cost out the window. Find a way to, yes, track the way you're operating, track your triggers, not so you can go beat yourself up after the trading day, but so you can start to get really curious about how you tick, what makes you lose it, what has you break your own rules over and over again. Start to find the patterns. You guys are great at finding the patterns in the market. Start to find the patterns in yourself. Become as masterful at noticing those patterns, guys. Those are the patterns that you likely haven't paid that much attention to. And it's great for you to have the pattern recognition with the market. But if you don't have the pattern recognition within your own psyche, you're missing a huge part of the equation. All right. I'm going to close her up there. I don't see any volunteers. I am going to say that if any of this resonates with you today and you would like to have a conversation to see if working with me would serve you, please click this link. This is the Work With Me link. Very original, I know. And I would love to talk to you, see if I can help you. If I think I can, I'll let you know. And if I think I can't, I'll let you know. But please don't hold back. Feel free to sign up. Del, thank you. I hope this served you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next Wednesday if that works for you in your schedule. This was awesome. And even though we didn't get any volunteers today, please, guys, consider coming next week. Del hopefully will be able to show up, but there's usually 2 hot seats. So please consider coming on this so that you could get some speed coaching. Thank you for the shout out, Del. You have a lovely evening too. And yes, listen to the Michael Platt X Space. We're going to drop his podcast interview, which is part 1 of that 2-part conversation this week, some point. If not this week, next week. It'll come out soon. Yeah, next week. Because today is Wednesday. We just recorded it Monday. So at least a week. But I think that's it. It was really good to be here with all of you today. Del, so fun to reconnect with you. I want to also say thank you to Atina. It was so good to see you like usual. And looking here, who asked our question? I'm trying to find you here. Hold on. Oh, I don't know. You're who was that? I'm sorry. There's so many names flying past me. Oh, Adi. It was Adi. Adi, thank you for your question. And hopefully, Adi, you're going to sign up for that needs list and we can get your some of your needs met so that frustration can decrease. Because when you get your needs met, you do find the unpleasant feelings start to diminish. And that's the key. All right. A pleasure as always, guys. I am sending you lots of aloha and hopefully I will see some of you back next Wednesday. And thank you for being here. And I hope this was helpful. And again, feel free at any point. You can DM me with your question. You can send an email. And don't forget, we have Trader Vent, which is a voicemail you can leave your trading issue on 646-828-7736. 646-828-7736. You can leave a voicemail there anonymously, and then I will take that recording, play it, and answer your trading issue on the next live. Okay, aloha and a